Okay. All right. So today is first day of preparation for us. So today is Wednesday, even though the calendar may say differently. So we're going to get to work on our first and second down. Started that this morning in our virtual meetings, bring the guys in for a walkthrough right into practice, and an important day in our preparation. Obviously, big game. We know what's at stake. We know the team we're playing. Really, really good football team. Bunch of great players on both sides of the ball. Great coaches. A team we know well. They know us. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to go to Heinz Field Monday Night Football and compete against a really good team. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Coach. The first one will be from Nate Orr.
Hey, Kevin. Ben Roethlisberger said today that, signs are pointing this could be his last game, at least for the regular season in Heinz Field. So just wondering what you think about Ben's career and what that could mean for the atmosphere Monday night.
Yeah, obviously he's a great player, but I'm really focused on trying to defend him Monday night. He's still playing at a really high level.
Okay. And your pre-practice injury report, I had 4 guys on it. Myles Garrett wasn't on it. Does that mean you expect to have Myles back at practice today?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Next up, Tom Withers.
Thanks, Rob. Hey, thanks, Kevin. In terms of Baker this year, I'm sure he'd be the first to admit that he would like to play better, and he's had a lot of things, up against him, injuries, et cetera, being out last couple of weeks. How do you think he's handled all of that this year, Kevin? And if you could identify what growth you've seen in him in your second year with him, what would it be?
Yeah, Tom, I think for Baker, it's so similar to our team. We've been inconsistent coaches. We've been inconsistent. We just haven't consistently done it at a high level, enough. And that's what happens when you have the record we have and some of the opportunities that we've talked about in the past. So for all of us, we're just searching for that consistency, and really for all of us, we have to double down on how we prepare. I think you guys know Baker. He works very, very hard at this. He grinds. The quarterback room with him and Case and Nick and AVP, TC McCartney. I mean, those guys spend a lot of time on this and making sure that they're ultra prepared to play.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, Tom. We'll go to Mary Kay Cabot.
Yeah, Kevin, just wondering, what did you think of John Johnson III's play calling advice to you the other day to, run the damn ball, all caps on Twitter. And, maybe that fits into the, personality, welcome, production expected type of thing. But how did you feel about that?
Yeah, that's something I'll obviously keep internal, Mary Kay. But, I'm not on social media. And I would tell you the vast majority of it is just background noise.
And just in terms of JJ3 and now if he is able to make it back, but you're getting guys back in your secondary. It looks like Greg Newsome will be able to be back. Just do you feel better with, Ronnie Harrison and some of those guys coming back in for a big game like this?
Yeah, Mary Kay, getting guys back from injury, getting guys back off the COVID list, it's always good to work them back in, see where they are. I think that's important that with all these guys that are coming back, we need to put our eyes on them, put them through the workouts, put them through the rehab, see where they are, and then, plan their role accordingly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Kay. Scott Petrick, you're up.
Hey, Kevin, I did want to ask you about Greg. Is he cleared concussion protocol?
Yes.
Right. Is he still in the COVID protocol?
We're anticipating he's coming off shortly.
Oh, great. In any of those guys on the injury report today that aren't practicing, are you ruling any of those guys out for Monday night?
No.
Okay. And last thing about Myles, how did you think the groin affected him against Green Bay? What did it kind of not let him do that he normally does?
I think, honestly, Scott, Myles could probably answer that better than I could. But, he wasn't feeling 100%. What that percentage was, I'm not entirely sure. But he certainly wasn't the 100% version of Myles we've seen this season.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Jake Trotter, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, statistically, at least Baker has really struggled in the fourth quarter this season, compared to last year, especially when he was pretty effective in the fourth quarter down the stretch. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, Jake, I kind of would go back to what we talked about earlier. I think you have to look at it as an offense. And specifically when you're talking about the quarterback and the quarterback's statistics or numbers, it takes 11 guys. It takes all of us to do our job, to be productive in the pass game. We often talk about precision in the pass game, and that goes through all 11 players. It's the protection, it's the routes, it's the throwing, all those things. So, specific to that fourth quarter stat, whatever it is, Jake, I just think it's really an offense, a unit stat, and including me when you're talking about that.
So off that, why has the passing game as a whole struggled so much in the fourth quarter this season?
Yeah, it's something that we've looked long and hard at, and I think the answer is always a little bit of, there's no one thing. It's a little bit of everything, and we just got to make sure we all do our job just a little bit better.
Thanks, Jake. Jeff Shadell will have our next question.
Hey, Kevin, I'm going to ask you specifically about Kareem Hunt. So you're not ruling him out. Can you talk about how he has progressed, and do you anticipate having him on Monday?
Yeah, I think we'll see. Like you said, I'm not ruling him out. Want to see how he looks throughout the week. If we can get him back, I think that'd be a big boost to our team. He's a great competitor. So we're hoping that he can make it back.
Thank you, Jeff. Tony Grossi, go ahead.
First, Kevin, a question about your kicking situation. Why did you add another kicker who hasn't kicked in a game? And what does that say about the state of what's going on at that position this week?
Yeah, I just think, Andrew and the personnel staff felt it was important to bring guys in for a workout, signed a kicker off of that. Chase is anticipating him coming back off of the COVID list. So just trying to make sure we're always adding and managing this roster.
So is there an audition going on this week?
Yeah, I'm focused on today, Tony, which for me is Wednesday. So
okay. So who's your kicker today? Is it Nagar, or is it Blewett, or is it McLaughlin?
We'll see out of practice.
Okay. The other question is, there's two schools of thought about the Steelers' run defense. One is traditionally you don't run on them; they're so good, you don't run on them. Realistically, they're 32nd in the league. Everybody runs on them. Where do you fall in line on that issue?
Yeah, Tony, it's a good point. And I know what the statistics say, but when we played them last time, it was a hard front to run on for us in that last game. I know we ended up having some yards towards the end, but it's a stout front, and we have to make sure we're doing our job really along the front, on the perimeter, running back, you name it. You really have to be about your business, because this is a physical group. They run multiple fronts. As you know, they have the big players on the edge. Number 97 is still playing at a very, very high level. So it's a really good group. So I know what the statistics say, and I understand that, but I have a ton of respect for that defense and that run defense.
Thanks, Tony. Dan Lobby is next.
Hey, Kevin, I wanted to follow up on Jeff's question about Kareem. Obviously, Dearness has stepped up and you've had guys step up. But when you don't have Kareem out there with all of the things he can do, how does that impact what you can do on offense?
Well, I think you mentioned it. Dearness has stepped up for us in big moments and come through. And having said that, I think all those guys are different. So if you don't have Nick, you're not going to replace Nick. If you don't have Kareem, you're not going to replace Kareem per se. These guys are great players. So Kareem has a different style than each one of those guys. They all have their own flavor in terms of how they run, how they play. And certainly Kareem's style fits what we do. So if we are able to get him back, look forward to utilizing him.
And then I guess, obviously you guys kind of knew what Dearness could do. You saw a little bit of it last year, but is it almost like a blessing in disguise here that you really got to see a lot of Dearness, and now you kind of have a three-headed monster there at running back?
Yeah, I think we've been talking about it all season long. Part of the reason we kept Dearness on the roster way back when was we just feel like he's a good football player. He helps us on special teams. He gets in there on first and second down, does his job, gains the yards, gains extra yards, throw him out there on third down, knows what to do from a protection standpoint. So those guys are really valuable to have on your roster.
Thanks, Dan. We'll go back to Nate Ulrich.
And since you've been here, I've heard you reference John Madden a few times. I was just wondering, within passing recently, what you think of, his legacy, what kind of influence, he may have had on you, as a coach, becoming a coach, whether, that was watching on TV or playing the games or what have you?
Yeah, I would think any football fan my age, however old I am, growing up, you were playing Madden, and I think my first Madden game, I believe, was probably '93. And it was just such a big part of our childhood growing up and playing with your friends, and he was ubiquitous in all that. And then as a commentator, he was a lot of times doing those NFC games for Fox. So growing up an Eagles fan, anytime you heard Madden and Summerall, you knew it was a big game. So certainly he was definitely on in the background of my life, and obviously what he's meant to our game. I don't know if anybody's had a bigger impact on our game.
Ever get to interact with him when you were coming up?
I did not. Yeah, he was, he would come through a few times when he was doing games, come through the Vikings for production meetings, that type of thing. But I never had the pleasure of meeting him.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Mary Kay Cabot, go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin, Emily Mayfield posted, again, you said you're not on social media, but maybe you're aware of this, maybe you're not. Emily Mayfield posted on social media after the Packers game, a day or so after the Packers game, that Baker had received death threats on social media. So just wondering, are you aware of that? And is it something that you would feel that you would need to address with him?
I'm aware of that, Mary Kay. Again, people can and do say some crazy things out there. So if it rises to the level of that, certainly we can help address those type of things. But short of that, just in general, not specific to that, but in general, it's a lot of noise out there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Kay. Jake Trotter, you're next.
Hey, Kevin, earlier you were talking about, how much Baker grinds, how much work he puts in. What do you make of the season that he's had, dealing with the shoulder, the Odell saga, 2 weeks on the COVID list, flying up day of the game to play? How do you think he's handled the adversity, especially kind of the unique adversity he's had to face this season?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it, Jake. It's unique, some of the things, but the NFL, you never can predict what's going to happen week to week, year to year. So we as a team have seen a bunch of things and had to be resilient. And Baker specifically, you mentioned the injuries and those type of things. He's fought through them, and he's gotten his treatment and made sure he's ready to go and be there and be accountable for the team.
It seems like he's such a tone setter for you guys going back to last year. When he's playing well, it seems like your team feeds off that. Conversely, when he's not playing well, it seems like, to us at least, that that has an effect maybe emotionally. Is that something you see in your quarterback playing well? Obviously is important, but as a vocal leader of your team, how important is it that he sets that tone for you guys?
Yeah, Baker's a leader of this team. That's well documented. That's just who he is. That's the type of person he is. That's how he handles his business around here. So I wouldn't characterize it any differently based on different games. He's a fighter.
Thanks, Jake. We'll go to Daryl Ryder.
Yeah, Kevin, another Baker question for you, specifically about like the last 2 to 3 minutes in games. I know earlier you mentioned it's a collective. Everybody has to kind of come together and be better. So just from that angle, how can you guys, coaching, team, whatever, help Baker be better in those moments? It's a pass-fail league, and the cold hard math is he had 5 opportunities this year, and you guys haven't been able to capitalize on those. So I guess collectively, how do you guys be better in those moments?
Yeah, I think, Daryl, we've had 5 opportunities, like you mentioned it, we as a group. And these games are close. That's the NFL. And I know we've played in a bunch of close ones, and we're going to continue to play in close ones. And there are opportunities in each one of those moments for us to come through. And that's the plural, us. And that's where I feel like we as coaches need to put our guys in position to succeed. And when we do that, obviously, then we got to come through and make a play. But it's certainly something that we're working very hard on.
Thanks. Thank you, Daryl. Next up, Cam Justice.
Hey, Kevin, I have an organizational kind of question for you. When you have a player going through injury or, maybe a developmental player that's working to get up to speed, do you and your trainers maybe send them home with some drills, some tips and things for them to work on off the field? Obviously, they're getting a lot of work there through practice, but is there an emphasis of the off-field work too, like the veterans are doing each day and each week?
Yeah, Cam, we do put a very, very big stake in player development here. It's less so away from the building. It's more in the building. I would think the off season is when you see a lot of the guys that are not in town, where we'll give them drills and workouts and those type of things. But we put a heavy premium on player development, and it's not just the young players. It's all of our players. So we work real hard. Post practice, you'll see our opportunity periods where we'll take some of those young guys that haven't gotten a ton of reps in practice, bring them off to the side, put them through drills, and then make sure that we're intentional as an organization about what we want those players to work on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cam. We have time for one more. Tony Grossi.
Thank you. Thank you. Kevin, in contrast to your team's fourth quarter struggles, Pittsburgh has scored 150 points in the fourth quarter, and Ben's got 11 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And a lot of that has to do with them coming from so far behind, like in your playoff game, we saw that. But do you think there are some individual quarterbacks who just have the power to hit another gear in that final frame and in the final minutes?
Yeah, I think probably historically, Tony, you could look at a lot of quarterbacks over time that, that have these comebacks and I think about some of their great ones. Peyton Manning comes to mind. I mean, think of Frank Reich in Buffalo. These guys come from behind and they're down multiple scores and they're chucking around the yard. So obviously there's some great historical context for guys that come from behind. And as it relates to us, in any game we're in, when we get in those moments, we're always thinking about what the situation is, how many timeouts do we have, how many yards do we have to go to kick a field goal, how many scores do we have to get. So a lot goes into that 2-minute drive and in terms of operation and making sure that all 11 players are on the same page.